Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston.
Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston, and this is The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. Going to bring you a fantastic topic today, as usual, and something that I think people are beginning to open their eyes to. My guest and I have known about these things for quite some time, but now I think the public has begun to understand how our genes play a huge role in our health and longevity. And so I am going to bring on Jaclyn Downs today, who has her master's in holistic nutrition, but also certification in the functional genomics area, which is, again, an up and coming and growing area. And as you said very, very well in the beginning when we first started our discussion, Jaclyn, this is something people have known about for a long time, and in our industry, but I think we're starting to get to the public and open our eyes now that there's a bigger story underneath. There's plenty of toxins in our world. There's, a lot of things that we know about our body beyond just hormones and detoxifying and all these things. Genomics. This is a great area. I am so glad to have you on. Welcome in.
I am really happy to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, and I think that, in opening up, tell us a little bit about you and how you came to love and have this passion for genetics and genomics.
So my father was a nutritional biochemist. So I grew up just kind of knowing that the nutrition that we were being fed was not the nutrition that provided true health and wellness and vitality. And so I've always had an interest in nutrition, but the school that I went to in Philadelphia didn't have, the university I went to didn't really have an adequate enough nutrition program for me because there wasn't really functional medicine back in the late 90s that was well known about, if it even was very much a thing. So I got a psychology degree, and then I sort of took a left turn and fell into birth work. And then I became a doula and was apprenticing with a home birth midwife. But later on, fast forward, I had my own children, and I didn't want to be on call anymore. So I got and through that, I had received my master's in holistic nutrition and health coaching certification and stuff, but wasn't really doing a whole lot with it here in Pennsylvania. And then I got a job being as a research assistant for a local naturopath. And this was probably in 2014, something like that. He hired me to research MTHFR. Mm-hmm. And I laugh now because I researched only MTHFR for about a week or two. And then it turned into other genes in the methylation pathway, then the transsulfuration pathway, and how this pathway intersects with that pathway, and all the genes involved in those pathways. And it just evolved into what it is today with the world of functional genomics and the testing and software that I use to create my genetic interpretations.
Which is wonderful. And MTHFR is a hot topic, but so misunderstood. And what's even, more sad than that is that it's more misunderstood, I think, by physicians and people who are in the prime, place to really help people. I think this is underneath, cardiovascular disease and cancer and dementia and all the hot topics we are looking at, today to try to avoid. And besides that, just not feeling well, mitochondrial function, right? And underneath it all. So yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. With genomics though, I guess explain, what they are. I mean, people hear this buzzword now all the time, but maybe don't really understand how it applies to them.
Okay. So functional genomics involves genes you can do something about. These are subtle little variations in your genes. So they're not outright genetic mutations like you have, like a genealogist or a geneticist, do to track your carrier status for things like muscular dystrophy, right? Sure. You have that. It's a true genetic mutation. It's very life altering, but functional genomics are genes you can do something about. So the way I explain it is that every single reaction that takes place in our body is dictated by a gene. how we transport a nutrient or a hormone, how we degrade it, how it's used, if it's able to get into the cell effectively. But every single one of those reactions, the gene makes an enzyme, but enzymes require nutritional cofactors.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a gene is variated, or as a lot of people say, mutated, which isn't technically the right term, but for ease of conversation, we can say mutated.
Sure.
But if a gene is variated, then it can alter that enzymatic functioning. Either it could speed it up in some degrees, depending on what it is, or it could slow it down, like MTHFR slows down the enzymatic functioning of the MTHFR enzyme. And so you can help to compensate for some of these genetic variants by taking more of the nutritional cofactor that's required. Or the thing is that we don't just want to treat the SNP. It's a single nucleotide polymorphism is when if you have a variant, that's what it's called. It's called a SNP or a variant, or like I said, some people say mutation. So there are definitely things that you can do to optimize the functioning of these enzymes.
Right. So how many, this is kind of a weird question, but how many different, tests and not mutations, but SNPs or whatnot, have we identified at this point that we can actually affect? I mean, it's enormous number, but how many do we know of at this point?
I think the field is just broadly expanding. So right. Every day we're doing research on more and discovering more, and adding more to the list. Yep. The software that I use looks at about 230,000 SNPs, I think.
There you go. And I ask that only because I want people to understand how large this is. I mean, this is, we go in and like you say, there, you said before, we have a little cheek swab we can do for MTHFR to get the two little SNPs that people are testing. Maybe now people are adding on the COMT again, as you mentioned. But the enormity of it, I think, is what I want people to understand. This is, and we have just begun. And so what do you then, when you are counseling and talking to people, because a lot of people want their testing done, but how does somebody go about actually looking for something more specific? Because in these tests, it seems to be directed more corporate fashion to just, kind of a non-personalized, kind of a blanket for everybody. So how do you approach that in trying to counsel somebody on what they should look at, test for, and what they should be doing?
Well, it starts with a very meticulously in-depth intake form, which all of those companies that are designed for high volume and just print an automated report with a standard set number of genes and SNPs, and do you have it, do you not, and what to do about it, right? So they're basically just saying if this, then that, and a lot of times those things contradict each other. Like they'll say, make sure you avoid methylfolate on one page, and then 10 pages later they're saying, make sure that you take methylfolate. And so that just leaves the consumer really with analysis paralysis. Yeah. So when you truly want to custom craft a personalized interpretation, you need to know what that person's diet is like, what their stress levels are, what their poops are like, how their periods are, if they have periods, their sleep, their exposures, any familial medical histories. And so that way we know where in the software to go, because I'm not just going to analyze 230,000 SNPs for, So based on what this person's goals and symptoms and history is, and then looking at their genes and seeing where they're really variated, those are two talking points, right? Here's the things that you were just concerned about, but also in addition to that, or next to that, here's some things where you're really genetically predisposed. Now, just because you have a genetic variant does not mean it is expressing. And so it's just nice to know, like, okay, well, maybe you have some genes for poor bile flow, right? You might have some genetic variants for poor bile flow, but maybe because you've taken pretty good care of yourself and had a pretty decent diet, that's not affecting you yet, but it's good to know. And it's very empowering, because that could be something down the road. If you start having upper right quadrant pain, you might be like, oh, you know what? I do have a genetic weakness there. Let me test it, or let me just support it, or, take some bitters or something like that and see if it helps. And so that's one thing, is just making sure that you have a really customized, really detailed intake form. And then the genetics pair really, really nicely with functional lab testing, especially a urine organic acids test. Because, like, for instance, with the fats again, you can see, okay, well, this person has CYP7A1, PEMT SNPs, and they're just really variated in a bunch of these genes. And so how do they look on an organic acids test, right? There's like 8 markers for fatty acid utilization. So we could see if that gene is expressing, and if so, to what degree. And a lot of times, if they have fat utilization issues, but their genes look relatively robust, we know that maybe you want to investigate mold, or there's a secondary reason. It's not the genetics causing the issue, it's an environmental factor causing the issue.
Absolutely. And so the customized fact is what, is definitely what I'm going for, because again, I know many companies offer, a lot of testing, and people do not know where to go with it. You do have to see somebody on a customized level, personal level, to truly understand what's going on in your body. And so when, why would somebody seek out genetic testing? I know there's like a list as long as both my legs, strung together and more of, what people are looking for when they do it, but kind of name a few of the top types of patients and people that you see.
So I'd say about half of my clientele are fertility related because of my history in birth work, and because of my academically published book, Enhancing Fertility Through Functional Medicine.
Yes.
The subtitle is Using Nutrigenomics to Solve Unexplained Infertility.
Yes.
And so it talks about genes far beyond MTHFR. So fertility, I also just want to let people know that IVF is not your first and only option. So
Thank you.
Yeah, so that, but also a lot of my clients are people that have been to 6, 7, 10, 12 other doctors, whether they were functional medicine doctors or conventional doctors. They just haven't gotten the care that they needed or were looking for, whether it was just being dismissed or being given a prescription, or, given a bunch of supplements, but they're not working, or something worked and backfired, actually did the opposite of what it was supposed to do. And so that's where they're like, okay, I want to look to my genes to see why this is going on, or why the traditional recommendations haven't helped, so I can really get to the root. So really, functional genomics explains the why behind the root cause.
Yes. Yeah. And good point too. And you might kind of continue to expand upon that too, because I know, and I'm glad you brought up your book. So Enhancing Fertility Through Functional Medicine. We're going to have a link to that on the website for those who want to go and take a look. I spend a lot of time with women on hormones and estrogen dominance and issues such as this. And I'm just honored to have you on and have promote this book. I think it's wonderful. And so, but beyond that too, I have a lot of patients who, are concerned, from something as small as you mentioned, how they metabolize their medications. Why certain medications, like you say, backfired, because people don't realize supplements and prescriptions can do just that. They can backfire. You can take something trying to heal something, but if you are just not, genetically made to metabolize correctly, or the list is long there as far as medications go, it may backfire. You may have side effects. You may have problems, and we need somebody to guide us through those issues. And so that's a good place where patients can check. Something as simple too as if you have to take a, blood thinner, for instance, you have AFib, you're on a blood thinner, what works, what doesn't. One of my favorite examples is people with dementia. Taking some of the prescription medications, the Ariceps and things like that, may backfire and not work. And so there's a much deeper level that you can go to ensure that you're getting treated. So dementia, heart disease, down to even probably your gut, maybe microbiome and how your gut works. And so are there other great examples too of what patients can seek to learn about themselves?
A lot of people come to me with migraines, especially with energy problems and fatigue.
Big one.
Yes. Yeah. Brain fog, but also just chronic pain. And so, that could be caused by any number of things, right? Just, so really the functional genomics, I see the strength, at least in the software that I use, looks at causes of oxidative stress and inflammation, right? So we can have, everybody can have some degree of inflammation, but where is your genetic weak link? Is it because you have genetic variants in your inflammatory messengers? So they're just hypervigilant and trigger happy, and they're just sending out inflammatory messaging throughout the body? Or is it that you don't have enough antioxidants maybe to deal with just a regular amount of inflammation and oxidative stress that is being generated on a daily basis? So it can really help to identify the causes of the oxidative stress and inflammation.
Yeah. And so inflammation, the basis of all evil. I mean, that is truly the basis of most every single disease you can think of. And so most people are looking to eradicate it and treat it, underlying chronic pain, energy problems. Those are probably the top things that I see besides the hormone work. But in patients who are looking for answers, genetics, I believe, or genomics can lend a hand to not just the treatment that would be personalized for somebody, but then the underlying places where they've gone wrong. Anybody can buy a supplement. Anybody can take something, but to open it up to this extent would slowly identify, probably save you some money long term too, in what you're buying and attempting to do. And many practitioners really don't practice this. It's a shame. We get about 15 minutes with a patient. How can you delve into the world of genomics and help anybody on that level? That's why what you're doing is so important. But do you find that to be the case?
Absolutely. It saves a whole bunch of time, money, trial and error. And especially with fertility, it can save a lot of heartache too.
Oh gosh, yes. Absolutely. So,
and also from a supplement standpoint, why did methylfolate backfire for somebody, right? So that doesn't mean don't ever take methylfolate. It's just that there's certain layers and foundational things that need to be addressed first to help correct why your body isn't tolerating it. Like, for instance, I talk about in my book, the most simple thing is, a lot of people will say, well, I have MTHFR, so I'm going to take high doses of methylfolate. But if you don't have adequate B12, then something called folate trapping is going to happen. And so you need B12 and other B vitamins too, in order for your folate to be able to work. So it might just be that, yes, you do need it, but not yet, or not in that amount.
Absolutely. Take a stepwise fashion. I have a great example of a patient who is kind of developing some early dementia and definitely has MTHFR and COMT and other issues as well. And it was on a very high dose of methylfolate and worsening. And so the patient came to me to understand, how I'm doing everything I thought I was supposed to do. So why is this not improving? And if I didn't hope to get too specific on anything, but if you would explain a little bit about MTHFR, this is really possible, right? Take a whole new 3 shows probably to do, but explain how, as an example of, how genomic testing can, benefit somebody in, say, using MTHFR as an example, how far it goes and how deep you really have to get in order to correct an underlying problem.
I feel like MTHFR has so much emphasis and the spotlight placed on it. And I'm not discounting the importance of it, but there are so many other accompanying players that affect whether or not MTHFR is causing a problem. Because if you have something called FOLH1, that's what turns your food into the form of folate for MTHFR to add a methyl group to. So, or if you have folate receptor issues, the folate can't even get in. So it doesn't matter really yes, it can add insult to injury, but let's go further upstream and identify and correct those factors first before addressing the MTHFR. So MTHFR is one of the liver's phase 2 detoxification pathways as well. And so a lot of people say, well, I can't detox because I have MTHFR. But a lot of times people haven't even heard of the glucuronidation pathway, which is a huge clearance factor for especially hormones, right? A lot of endogenously produced substances.
Yes.
And so it's like, we can't just focus on MTHFR or just genes in the methylation pathway, because there are so many other things that we need to look at. So I know that didn't really answer your question, but I just felt like that was the very, very important point to punctuate.
Actually, it did. And that actually, without having asked you straightforward, I guess, you answered it beautifully, because again, it's more complicated than it seems. And to, to take something that seems so simplistic and understand it really is not, and where you can get trapped. There's just so many areas where people, patients can get trapped, trying to do this on their own. And so, to not do that and then back up and make sure, as you said, make sure that you're looking at all the different areas and factors that will make a difference along the line. And so, beautiful. You answered it beautifully.
One example, especially in your field with the hormones, right? HRT is becoming very, very popular.
Yes.
And some women feel terrible on it, right? A lot of women feel great on it. But, maybe they start getting migraines or, puffiness or something, and estrogen and histamine feed each other. And so if you are not metabolizing your estrogen well down certain CYP pathways or phase 2 liver detox pathways, or you have genetic variants within your histamine pathway, then these are things that would be good to know before you do exogenous hormones for IVF or HRT or even the birth control pill and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Well said. And so what did it take then? What was, if somebody wanted to get this testing, and so what is encompassed in reaching out to you would be a great idea and to do, but, in getting that done, what do they need? What questions should they ask? What should patients look for?
They want to make sure they're not just getting a test that says, okay, here's the couple dozen genes we're looking at, and each of those genes has only one SNP, because genes can have one specific gene. Even MTHFR has dozens upon dozens of SNPs. It's just those two are the most popular.
We test the two.
So you want to look for a software company or testing company that looks at as many SNPs for a single gene as possible, because sometimes having a SNP in something could upregulate. So let me finish what I'm saying here. Sorry, I'm getting really excited.
It's good. I love it.
So a certain gene can have multiple SNPs. And if you have a variant in one of those SNPs, that could cause upregulated enzymatic activity, so that could speed up the enzyme. And then you could have a SNP in that gene also that slows down the activity of that enzyme. And so those two could essentially cancel each other out, so to speak. And so the more points of information that you have, the more comprehensive of an assessment that you can make. So first off, look for a company that is going to test for as many genes and SNPs as possible, because no gene really works in isolation unless, like I said, it's like a muscular dystrophy, true mutation kind of thing. Sure. Also, you want to just make sure you're not getting automated canned responses, because like I said, they could contradict each other from one page to another. And it also just provides a lot of confusion. And so, and then making sure that interpretation is based on your dietary preferences, your level of activity, your environmental exposures, right? Because maybe you're getting some information on things that aren't really relevant to you, at least at this season of your life.
Right. And so when is a good time to do it then? Because I think people may not truly understand that there is much in the preventative. So we're always looking at, I've got the disease now, so I think I'll get tested and see what I can do. But what about in the prevention?
Yes, a lot of people are scared to get their genes tested because they think it's all doom and gloom. But I think it's so empowering and preventative, especially when it comes to things like artificial assisted reproductive technologies, and exogenous hormones, or any kind of medication, procedures, anything like that, because you will have an idea of how much of it is genetic, how you can best support it, which targeted supplements you can use. Maybe one form of magnesium would be better than another based on, your anxiety levels or your bile flow or something like that. So it can really just take out the guesswork.
It can. One of the best examples I can think of is people who undergo, surgery and get anesthesia. So some people can rip right, through it and wake up mid procedure. And some people, it could take 6 to 8 weeks for the stuff to leave their system and they remain foggy over it. So there is an example of how genes play a role in just kind of your everyday life and something you might need to know ahead of time. If you're going to have a surgery, how can you best support your system to, get rid of all the toxins from anesthesia or whatever. So I those are great examples, I think, of different ways that you can use this more proactively and preventatively. And so I do want, we are going to come back here in just a few minutes. I'll take a short break and talk a little bit more about your services and why someone like you is exceedingly important to this field. Because don't come to me. I understand genomics. I understand genetics. I get all of that. My goodness gracious, this is something that is very, very deep and requires years and years of study, as you've done. So I want people to know, first of all, where can they find you and information on you and your book?
Okay, they can go to my website, jaclyndowns.com, JACLYNDOWNS, or they can follow me on Instagram, and my handle is @functionalgenomics.
Beautiful.
I also have the book, which you can get on my website as well.
Very good. Yes, a very direct, very promptly posted, very direct link. And if you're on YouTube with us today, we've got a QR code up in the corner that you can hit to and get a direct link. Of course, all this will be on the website. You can go to drpbetterlife.com. I will have links to her and her business, but also to the book. And so it's an easy, straight shot. And we will take a very short break with Magna Pharmaceuticals talking about actually methylated folate and B12. And so we'll take a short break and be right back on the other side.
Depression, anxiety, low energy, weakness, these are just some symptoms of low B12 levels. And the absorbable B12 folate supplement that's helping people declare victory over depression symptoms is De Novo Plus B12 by Magna Pharmaceuticals. Patients with symptoms of depression often exhibit low levels of folate and vitamin B12. The human body needs sufficient folate intake to produce the essential neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters alleviate feelings of sadness, anxiety, and gloom. What makes De Novo Plus B12 so successful? De Novo Plus B12 contains readily absorbable folate and B12. That means it's more successful at correcting the root cause of your deficiency, not just the symptoms. Whether you are suffering with low energy, depression, fatigue, or anxiety, you owe it to yourself to learn more at magnaweb.com. That's magnaweb.com. Please let us know at checkout that you heard about De Novo Plus B12 on The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.
A perfect example of what we are trying to accomplish here in, gaining some understanding of when to use certain supplements and in what situations. And I am here with Jaclyn Downs, who is a functional genomics, is certified in functional genomics. We are talking about just that. And so I'll ask you one more question before we kind of get into how patients can reach out to you and what testing you do and all. But, on the level of, looking forward with longevity, I think that's another great buzzword, these days, longevity. So how can I live to be, 150 and not just live to be that way, but have a quality, not just quantity of life. So how do genomics fit into the longevity scene?
I believe that it really starts with cellular health and how your mitochondria are functioning, how your body is able to fight off any damage and free radicals. And so it really comes down to oxidative stress and antioxidants and detox pathways, especially in this ever increasingly toxic world that we are being exposed to. So that's why the foundational package of my interpretations involves only antioxidant and detoxification genes, because if we are not detoxifying or we can't neutralize free radicals, we're going to have all kinds of problems, right? So that I think is the foundation. And then there are specific genes that people can, that we can look at, like your SERT genes, your sirtuins, which, Fertility, David Sinclair, they have done a lot of research in that area if you want to nerd out. The SERT genes, but also NRF2. I just really praise NRF2 in my book, and there are 2 specific genes related to NRF2. NRF2 is responsible for almost every single antioxidant and detoxification reaction in the body and mitochondrial functioning, right? ATP production. So these are the kind of genes that you want to look at far beyond just MTHFR.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then, it also comes down to lifestyle, right? But I'm assuming that your listeners are already not microwaving plastic and are trying to eat organic and eat a nutrient-dense diet and all of that stuff, right? Because that's the foundational stuff. Are you getting enough sleep? What are your stress levels like? Because food is information for your genes, but also energy and stress levels are information for your genes as well.
Absolutely. One question I've wanted to ask somebody for some time that certainly is always on my mind about our food sources and our food supply. Okay, so we go for organics, we go for non-GMO, we do all of that, but there is so much that's not addressed about even in that spectrum, the quality of our food lacking what nutrients are needed. I mean, our soil is depleted now, our growing practices are a mess. And so this is way off topic, but if you are advising somebody on, trying to eat well and not just supplement it out. I mean, you want to get your nutrition from your food, right? And not just supplement it out. But what are the best ways to look at, food supplies and make those choices beyond just organic or non-GMO?
Biodynamic, buying local, knowing your farmer, volunteering at the farm, or doing a CSA. Those are probably the top 5 recommendations that can ensure that you're going to get the best quality, cleanest, and most nutrient dense, because they're using, compost and these traditional modalities that have been used for eons.
Yeah. Used and forgotten in many cases and then shipped from Chile or Brazil or someplace. And, right. And so, and many people don't know that there are actually apps that you can go on and look for these local, local marketplaces, farmers markets or, the CSAs and things like that. So just check those things out. And I agree with you completely. But meat and potatoes of what I want people to know about you now. And why would we come to you? What is the perfect person to consult with you and reach out?
Well, for instance, if you have anxiety, that could be caused, a lot of people focus on serotonin and dopamine, right? Sure. But what people aren't hearing about is glutamate and glutamine. They interconvert, and also histamine. Both of those are excitatory neurotransmitters. And so if you have issues converting your glutamate into GABA, or just you have a very small tolerance for histamine levels, then that is absolutely going to cause anxiety. And then if you throw any kind of serotonin or dopamine related genes on that, we can really get to see what is going on, what might be causing it, and what the best route of action is for it. So anxiety is another really common, I think 95% of the people that I have you've worked with, whether or not I've read their genes, are dealing with anxiety. It's just
absolutely
so commonplace. So that would be something that you would want to get a genetic interpretation for, just because taking an SSRI or, some anxiety medication isn't, obviously, as you know, it's not getting to the root of the problem. It's just putting a Band-Aid on it or, covering up that check engine light.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is great. Well, how do people get in touch with you? What is the best and what is the process? So once they reach out, what happens after that?
So I have a lot of options. First off, especially for any practitioners that work with any clients of any sort,
absolutely,
that want to add, they know the benefits of adding genetics and genetic interpretation to their practice, but they just don't have the time or the wherewithal to learn a whole new field.
Thank you.
I have an affiliate program. And so you just give your client the link and I do the intake, I do the genetic interpretation, I make test recommendations, I make supplement recommendations, and they can share that with you. And that will help you to maybe identify something that you hadn't even thought that might be an issue, right? So that'll enhance your practice. So because I know there's a lot of practitioners that are really interested in it and want to add it to their practice, but they just don't know where to start. So that right there is the affiliate program. But I offer genetic interpretation packages, and I just launched a genetic concierge package where you have me, you can text me anytime, you have me for a certain period of time. So I kind of think of it as like, I'm your wellness bestie for a couple months, right?
There you go.
And so that offers like really high touch, high support, and the comprehensive genetic interpretation package. But I also have clients who just aren't really hip to knowing why they would want their genetics yet. And so they just schedule one-to-one consultations with me. And I also provide practitioner consultations as well, whether they have genetic report from another company and they want help interpreting it, or they want help interpreting a urine organic acids test or something like that. I do have my certification for organic acids testing as well. So I do consultations, and I have the genetic interpretation packages, and I have the concierge package, and then I have the book, and I am working on rewriting my book into another book that's not fertility specific. So hopefully that'll be out sometime this year.
Yay, good. Well, that was just another excuse to come back on the show and talk more about it. So, well, that is great. And I appreciate very much the provider side of your abilities, because like I said earlier, I do not have that capability. I mean, I understand things and have studied it for some time. It's so vast and so deep, and the amount of time that I'm able to spend with people and detail on it is just something I am missing, and always looking for these types of relationships with people who fully understand. I give you the glory, and I invite my patients to ask me, if this is something you don't know and understand, who can I go to? Will you work with somebody? I got this report from this person. Would you talk to this professional? And absolutely. So don't be afraid to approach your doctor with it, or your provider, nurse practitioner, or whomever you're seeing provider wise, and, tell them there's something you're interested in. You have a source, and a good one now. And so, it's great. She's open to work with people and work with your providers. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. Is the way it should be done. So that's great. Now, is there anything that, we've left out this morning that, a hot button topic, or something advice you would love to give?
Well, I think we hit all the points. I sort of was all over the place with answering your questions, because they're just such big topics.
It is.
And dive really deep on them. I think let's not go chasing genetics if you don't have the foundations in place. Is kind of, yes, I can recommend certain supplements, but they're called supplements, not substitutes, right?
Thank you.
So you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet or a toxic lifestyle.
Yes. No, you did great. This is a very large subject. It is really hard to pin that down in about 40 minutes. So no, you did fantastic. And I just want for people to understand that you can get information. You do have good resources. Use them, and very personalized, customized resource here with Jaclyn. And so please use it. How can people reach out to you and find you?
They can contact me at info@jaclyndowns.com, or they can contact me through my website, jaclyndowns.com. And on Instagram, I'm working on getting more consistent with that. Not a huge fan of social media, but yeah, I'm at Functional Genomics.
Boy, I feel for you there. I've recently been trying to do the same, and it's a handful. Trying to get all this accomplished is a handful, but when you're good and knowledgeable, you're good at what you do, and you're knowledgeable, people are going to find you. You're doing great. So love it. Please like and follow and take a look, and join Jaclyn on your venture for good health. And so, I think this is very good. Hopefully we can maybe open up a bigger topic in the future and go a little deeper. This was a nice overlay, but maybe we can go a little deeper on some of these topics, especially estrogen dominance and hormones. Nice big one. Yeah. And MTHFR and everything and everything else. But Jaclyn, thank you. It has absolutely been an honor to have you on this morning. And thank you for all this great information and what you're doing. So the functional world is growing and becoming bigger every day. And this is important. So thank you for coming on.
Well, and thank you, Marianne, for being a huge part in getting this information out there to the public. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's such an honor. So great, everybody. I'll have all this information on my website, drpbetterlife.com. You can find iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube are my biggest ones, but we're everywhere. So please take a look. And all I can say is Happy New Year, and please take care of each other out there. We'll see you next time.
You've been enjoying The Better Life with Dr. Marianne Pinkston. For more information, go to drpthebetterlife.com. That's drpthebetterlife.com. And listen next week for The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.